You too. Bye, guys.
All right, so let's now move hands here. I'm going to remove Jess from the screen, doing a little bit of navigating behind the scenes here as we're doing this here today, guys. So let me pull up Adriel up on screen. And Adriel, before I start your session, and you're going to be giving us some interviewing tips here today. But before we do that, give me just a moment, because I just want to remind people, if you're just joining us now, this is a LinkedIn Live-a-thon. This is an event I put together. This is the 4th month in a row I've been doing this, and every month I've changed the format up a little bit. And if you are just joining now and you missed the speakers from earlier and you're like, wow, this is great stuff, if you go to my webpage, mellermarketing.com/Lil April, so it's Lil April. It has to be all lowercase. I had somebody messaging me saying the link doesn't work, and it was uppercase. So you have to do lowercase LIL. That stands for LinkedIn Live April. You can sign up for that. And at the beginning of the day, I announced that my speaker lineup wasn't as diverse as it normally is. And I put out a call to people in my network to say, hey, who can you suggest that can join my speaker lineup for our final segment that'll be starting at about 12:30. And Adriel actually suggested someone. So I think we're up to 4 speakers right now. And then I'll be finishing us off in the conversation. So thank you to the community for suggesting those people. What I'd like to do now is, Adriel, so I'm trying to remember how you and I came connected. I think, did you see the post that I put up about this event? Do you remember?
I just show up in people's inboxes sometimes.
I don't remember where it was, but I know you messaged me. And then over the past month, my family's been ill and we're all getting better now, but I was trying to pull together the speaker lineup like from the couch, and I'm like, I know someone had emailed me, and I was looking through and I couldn't find, and I finally found I think we had a call, and during the call, I was like, okay, you're the guy who had reached out and you told me a little bit. I'm like, yep, let's talk about getting you on the event. So so tell us a little bit about who you are, Adriel, and what's your company, The Riveter, all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody, my name is Adriel. I'm super excited to be here. Like Brenda said, sometimes I just show up places, but hopefully everyone doesn't mind too much. Riveter is a community and a tool set for job seekers to help each other become better interviewers. There's thousands of people on there who are all actively practicing interviews and giving each other feedback. And so today, I'm going to share my screen in a moment and talk about confidence and storytelling in interviewing and how you can learn some of those skills, and give a few examples of what I think are awesome interview answers, and we'll go over them together and see what y'all think.
Awesome. And I made a faux pas. I mispronounced your name. Adriel, is that correct?
That's all right. You're not the first. It is Adriel.
I know I'm not, but I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about, and it was, I think, the person's daughter, and he said we gave her a very creative sounding name, but nobody can ever pronounce it, and she always was like wondering, like, when do I correct them? Do I correct them? Is it rude to correct them? And I said, no, I wish people would correct others on pronunciations. I don't ever, and like now I'm like, oh my gosh, Adriel's not going to like me anymore.
Jess Smith and I were actually talking a couple of days ago on a very related topic, how I just introduced myself as Adriel because there aren't so many out there, and she has to like very much clarify which Jess Smith she is. So we both got our challenges.
See, there you have it. Now, do you have the name pronunciation feature on your profile?
No, but I should. That sounds fancy.
So you have to go into your profile from the mobile app. So for anybody who's watching today, whether you're in career transition or just using this for networking, if you have a name that is either commonly mispronounced, I called him Adriel and he said, no, it's Adriel. So if that happens to you, or if you've got a tricky spelling first name, last name, where people are frequently not even pronouncing it, they're saying, how do you say that? Go into the LinkedIn, the app on your phone, and there's right next to like where you edit your profile at the top, next to your name field, there's a name pronunciation. You get 10 seconds. I have it set up on my profile, and Brenda Meller is not very commonly mispronounced. Sometimes I get Miller or Mueller, misspelled, but I still have enabled that field. So what you do is you set it up on your phone and you pronounce yourself, and you got 10 seconds to do so. And then it shows on your desktop as well as on the phone. So it's a common little a tool to use for those common misspellings and mispronunciations to take off on. So Adriel, I'm going to turn this over to you now. Do you have a slide deck or anything that you're going to share with us?
I do. So I'm going to share my screen here.
Okay. So what's happening right now, guys, is Adriel's going to click on the share icon in the bottom. And then as soon as it comes up, I see Mastering the Job Interview. I'm going to pull it up on screen here. And I'm going to take myself off of screen, Adriel. I'll still be in the background, and I'll come back in at about 12:50, 12:55, or I'm sorry, 12:20, 12:25 to help to facilitate Q&A. So I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right, perfect, Brenda. Well, hey, everybody, what's going on? It is awesome to see everybody here today. We're going to have a good time. Those who have seen me do this before, my goal is always the same. I have two goals. The first is to teach something very specific, very actionable that you can take away. But more importantly, my goal is to make this the most fun event around the job search that you've ever been to. So I know you go to a lot of these. I know that some are interesting, some are dull, some are somewhere in between. Our goal is to make this one number one. So let's do that. We're going to talk about mastering the job interview. And the way we're going to talk about that is we're going to use a bunch of references throughout the slide deck. And if you recognize the reference, such as who that is behind the R, drop it into the LinkedIn chat. I'm going to do my best to follow along on both, and we're going to have some fun. So very briefly, just to give this one away, this is Jeff Bezos on there. Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon. He interviewed something like the first 750 people who joined Amazon. And Jeff Bezos loved to interview because he was looking for two things. He was looking for people who are confident and people who are storytellers. And he took these same two skills and used it in his own career, because now Jeff Bezos is possibly, as you see him strutting along this street here, the most confident storyteller out there. And the reason I love to talk about interviews is because I think it's one of the most important skills you can gain while you are in the job search mode, right? It's something that you really need to be able to get that job. You've got to be able to tell stories. You've got to be able to impress the people on the other side. But I also love it because I think it's the skill that stays with you once you get the job, right? You've got to be confident once you come into the job. You've got to be a great storyteller in almost any role. So being able to work on those two things will stick with you for a long time. So we're not going to go over my whole background, but my name's Adriel. I've done a lot of startup stuff over the years, but confidence and storytelling really come from two things: stand-up comedy and podcasts. I've done a lot of both with differing levels of success. Stand-up comedy, did it a bunch of times. Wouldn't say I was the best at it, although one guy recently did call me the Jerry Seinfeld of career coaching. It was just one time, and then after that, he tried to sell me something that he had. So I'm not sure if he meant it, but regardless, I'm sticking to it. And then podcasting as well, being able to be around some of the best storytellers in the world, like the founder of Netflix or mayors of different cities. I was able to learn a lot from them. And I want to take what they taught me about confidence and about storytelling and bring it over to you guys in the context of job interviews. So currently, I'm the founder of Riveter. I mentioned it's a free tool and community to help each other become better interviewees. So we're going to talk about why great interviewees are confident storytellers. And again, if you recognize folks, drop it into the chat here. This, of course, is the most confident storyteller of them all, maybe. This is Texas's own Matthew McConaughey. And I think what he does incredibly well is he's got this suave, smooth ability to tell a story that you want to participate in and to make you hooked. So that is our goal in an interview: to tell stories that people want to participate in and to get them hooked. So the first is building confidence. And we're going to talk about 3 ways to do that: practicing, your pregame rituals, and your smile. And I think this is the first thing. Confidence does so much for an individual as they go into the interview. And I don't care what you've got to do to be confident. Put on your little red underwear like Superman's got on. Take that stance. We'll talk about some of those things. But confidence is the first thing we all need to work on. And this is a difficult thing. If you've been job searching for 4, 6, 12 months, and you've gone through interviews and you get no's, or you don't get called back, or you get ghosted, that confidence begins to wither. But without confidence, you just won't get anywhere. So the first, build confidence through practice. There's no such thing as being over-prepared, right? Again, drop it in here if you know this, if you know who this is and what the reference is. But there's no such thing as being over-prepared. You can't practice enough. And that practice, not only does it help you perform better, right? Any high school athletes here, I've heard the phrase from your coach, practice like you play. So and practice helps you play better. It helps you perform better. It helps you do better in an interview. But I think equally importantly, practice gives you the confidence that you can perform well. The more you practice, the more likely it is that when it's game time and the interview begins, you will be able to succeed. And the way you practice is important as well. I want you to, and these are kind of in order of the best ways I think you can practice. Practice with strangers, strangers who don't know you, strangers who don't owe you anything, strangers who won't be nice to you and will give you honest feedback. Practice with coaches, coaches who have seen thousands of people interview, coaches who can really help you curate your answers well. Practice with friends who are there for you. And if you have to, practice alone while you're taking walks with the dogs, or you're standing in front of the mirror while you're brushing your teeth. Practice makes you great. Next is build confidence with that pregame ritual. Michael Phelps, I hope you guys recognize this guy. He was kind of a big deal a few years ago. Michael Phelps has the same exact ritual that he's been doing every time he swam since he was like 8 years old. He stretches the same stretches. He paces the same paces. He listens pretty much to the same music. His coach reminds him of the same things. He gets to the pool at the same time. Building that pregame ritual out for yourself. And what are you going to do on game day? What are you going to do in the 15 minutes before an interview, in the hour before an interview? What time are you going to get dressed? What are you going to practice that morning? What are you going to tell yourself in the mirror? What are you going to eat? How far before? Getting your pregame ritual right so you get you're in the zone, you don't come frazzled, you've got everything set up is so important and often overlooked. Really think about that pregame ritual so you're walking into that interview with confidence. Now, the last part about confidence, build confidence by smiling. Smiling is this universal language. And when we are under a moment of pressure, when we are in a job interview or we're somewhere talking to strangers, smiling becomes harder. It seems like the pressure's on us and we're not sure about what we really have to smile about. But smiling is so important because it's really going to help you connect with people. You might have heard this 7-38-55 rule about communication, that in communication, 7% of it is the words that you say, 38% of it is the way you say those words, your tone of voice, tone of speech, but 55% of it is body language. Well, body language means a lot of things when we're in person. It's the way you shake your hand, the way you sit, your posture. And body language, when I'm just a talking head on a Zoom call in an interview, so much of that is smiling. So whenever you can, throw in a smile. Show them your pearly whites. It'll calm you down and it'll really ingratiate the person on the other side to you. So that's confidence. Now let's talk about telling great stories. I'm using this Pixar example here because Pixar does a couple things very well. If anyone read the great Ed Catmull book, is the founder of Pixar, about, it's called Creativity Inc., about how they built a business. All of their focus always is on telling a great story and telling it in 90 minutes. And only then do they talk about the fancy technology they're going to use to do that. But it's about great stories that are told quickly. So first is the STAR method. Many of you have been sort of in job search mode for a bit, or have read some blog posts. You've probably heard about the STAR method. What's the situation? What's the task you were assigned? What's the action you did? And then what's the result that you had? This is a great framework to be able to tell the great story if you don't know how. And you know, there's plenty of posts and content about the specifics of these, so I'm not going to dive into that. But there's two things I do want to mention. The first is the importance of bringing in some drama, right? I want you to really have a climax in the story that gets me hooked and says, oh my goodness, that is quite the story. And you could do that in many different ways for any story. Even if you are, say, an accountant and someone asks about your strength and the story that you want to use is something about how you once helped, your strength is actually communication, which is rare in accounting, and you once helped a client who was really nervous get unnervous, and you brought in the firm a lot of money through that, right? You can do that and tell it in two ways. You can say, well, you know, I was an accountant and we had this one client I remember, and they were really nervous about what we were proposing to them because they thought they were going to have to pay a lot of taxes. And I really kind of explained to them that, no, you'll actually save money in the long run. And then they've been with the firm for 10 years. Okay, that's one story, not a lot of drama. Or I can tell that same story, but make it more exciting. Well, let me tell you, my greatest strength is communication. I had this one client, they'd been with the firm for 15 years. Their name was Andy. And when I came to them with a proposal of what we're going to do for their taxes, they thought that they were going to have to pay $100,000 up front. And they said, they stormed in, they called my boss, they were nervous. And what really happened is that we had to do this switch that all of a sudden changed it. And in the end, I actually got on the phone with them. I said, hey, client Andy, here's what we're going to do. I know your concerns, but we've done this before. And let me walk you through how I'm actually going to save you $100,000. And we did. And they've been with us for another 10 years, right? Bring some drama into it. Get me involved. And the last mistake here that I see most people making is they use we a lot. They say, we accomplished this, my team did this, our goal was this. Instead, I want you to use the I. Use the first person. Because as an interviewer, I'm really trying to learn about you. I'm trying to learn a lot about what you've accomplished, what you've done, what you did in a tough situation, how you responded, what your strengths are. And if you're telling me too much about we, well, that's not going to be memorable for me. I want you to tell me about you. So use the I, use the first person wherever possible, because that will really help your storytelling. The next point here, tell the stories that are short and simple. So this guy here, you're probably not going to recognize, but I gave a little hint there that the girl in the middle with her hand up is Hermione Granger. So this is not in the movies. It's for fans of the books. This is Professor Binns, the ghost history teacher in the Harry Potter series. And he is famously boring. You can see this girl on the bottom here is asleep. Famously boring. Why? Because he rambled and he told long stories that are all very confusing. So what you want to do in your interviews is really work on keeping your stories concise, ideally under 2 minutes. And I know it can be hard. I know you've got so much to say. I know if someone asks about your strengths, you have so many strengths. I know if someone asks about a time you failed, you really want to explain why it wasn't exactly you failing. I know all these things to be true. I know when someone says, tell me about yourself, well, where do I start? I'm 50 years old. I've accomplished so much. I have children. I've had 8 jobs and I've had these great things. But you've got to keep them short because you've got to keep the audience engaged. People love the sound of their own voice. People love to get involved and give their own feedback and retort, and they don't want to be talked to for a very long time. So try your best to keep it short, to keep the audience engaged. And the last part is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. What that means is, in your answers, do not overcomplicate with multiple examples. Do not go down a rabbit hole, but this happened, then this happened, but then I had to do that. Keep it simple. When someone asks you for, tell me about all your strengths, say, well, the one strength I want to tell you about is whatever. When someone asks you, tell me about a time that you accomplished something you were proud of, don't give them, 8 minutes of backstory about how everything was broken, but then you came in and someone didn't believe you and then you had to convince them and then you just tell them the accomplishment. Give them the situation, give them the task, give them the action, give them the results. Keep it simple in your stories and keep it short wherever you can. And that's going to create memorable, engaging stories for you in your interviews. Now, the last part here, tell stories that you've practiced. We talked about practice as a way to build confidence, but I also want to talk about practice as a way to really tell great stories. Stand-up comics, like this Mark Twain Award winner, Dave Chappelle, he practices 1,000 times before he does anything in a big place. Any stand-up comic you've ever heard of has done their jokes that they're then telling on their Netflix or the HBO special 1,000 times at 1,000 different comedy clubs and open mics with 5, 10, 15 people there. And only then do they build up and up and up and perfect that story, shorten that story, figure out which punchlines are really going to land, figure out where to share different parts of those stories. They tell it 1,000 times before a game day. And so you want to be able to do the same. Great storytellers workshop over and over again, and they try it out on different audiences. Great storytellers don't just say, oh yeah, I've got this one thing in my back pocket. Let me try it out for the first time and I'm in an interview. Why? Because you don't know where the punchline is. You don't know what's excessive, what's too much, where the real meat of your story is until other people have told you and you've practiced it. And also because you've always got to be able to communicate differently depending on who you're speaking with. At Riveter, we love to say that communication is with the listener. Communication is with the listener. What that means is it's not about what you say, it's about what they hear. It's not about what you show, it's about what they see. So by practicing in front of, like we talked about earlier, strangers and coaches and friends and alone, you're going to be able to really get feedback from lots of different people, and then you'll be able to improve. So here's what we're going to do now. Looks like we have a few minutes left, and I do need to apologize. It seems like I actually can't follow along very well with the comments.
I'll help you out here. No problem at all.
There we go.
I'm back. Hi.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. So I don't see the comments, but
there you go.
But here's what I want to do, Brenda, if it's all right. So I pulled up a couple of interviews from the Riveter platform, just of members who I think did a great job. I want to share them. And then if people can post in the comments things you liked about the interview, things you think that they did well, and things you think that you would give them feedback about, we could just make it a nice engaging last 4 minutes. Would you help me out with that, Brenda?
Yeah, perfect. Go right ahead.
All right, so the first one here is Christopher. He's been in sales, specifically in catering, for 34 years, and he answered the question, tell me about yourself. So it's about 1 minute and 9 seconds long. I'm going to hit play. Brenda, do me a favor and give me a thumbs up if you can hear it. And then guys, post in the comments what you thought he did really well and where you think he could improve, all right?
Okay.
Back when I was in high school, I was really into photography. So much so that I decided I wanted to get a job at a photography store. So I did. And what I fell in love with was not the photography part of it, although I certainly was interested in that. It was in the sales. It was in the business part of it. It was helping people. It was having that conversation and building relationships with my clients. So they keep coming back to me for all their photography needs. And it's that passion that ignited a lifelong career in sales. And I really thrive when I have a product I truly believe in, and I can get in front of people who can say yes to me and show them the value of what I offer and what I can do to help their lives. They look at me not just as an expert in my field, but also an expert in their field, how they use the product. So what brings me here is from the job announcement and reading about your mission and your vision and your company and your culture and talking to people and doing the research, I can get behind this. I can believe in this product. I can take it to people and have a lot of success.
All right. Did folks respond with anything, Brenda? Anything you guys liked?
So comments are a little bit delayed from StreamYard to when we actually start to see them in here. I mean, I see one. This was my first one. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, he was a practice interview. So he's in a sweatshirt, but if it's a video interview you're submitting to somebody, I think you want to like still. Yeah,
let me clarify something very important. Thank you for whoever said that. So Riveter is a place where everyone dresses casually. Everyone just practices on their own. This is not a thing that recruiters or potential hiring managers see, just a place to practice. So if you see a lot of people in any amount of clothes. So yes, so we don't talk about backgrounds. We don't talk about attire here because folks are just practicing. But yes, great point.
Okay, good. And Renee said one thing good. She liked the story, passion since young. So that was a comment that she liked. Mary said intro was too long, was her initial reaction there. Let's see, anywhere else on here. The problem is StreamYard doesn't deliver all of our comments. It takes like a little bit of time. So if you guys have additional comments, they'll still continue to come in. Did you want to show another one, Adriel?
Yeah, so I want to show one more. So I think those are great things. You know how I said communications with the listener? Well, Chris got a bunch of feedback from a bunch of different people with government relations experience and sales experience and operations experience. So he's able to hear all those different things from you. So I think it was Mary who said it was too long. Well, great. You can give him that feedback and say, I would shorten it like this. Or someone else said, great story. I love the intro and it got me emotional. Great thing to bring in. So I'm going to show you one more in the last few minutes here. So this is from Sierra. She's a brand new software engineer, got 0 years of experience. So she's brand new to software engineering. And this is her answer to what have you been doing during COVID? So her answer is about 1 minute and 12 seconds long. I'm going to play and again, drop your feedback. And then Brenda, you can either curate it or you can tell me what you thought Sierra did really well and where you think she could improve. And again, she dressed up a little bit nicer, just so happens, but we're not less focused on darkness and clothing and background and more on the content and how she delivers it.
Within a week of the pandemic stateside arrival, I traded daily trips to the gym and weekend brunches for daily trips to my living room and hours of doom scrolling. Needless to say, it quickly became apparent that I needed to find new ways to fill my days with meaning. Initially, I reorganized every closet in my home, cooked every recipe I could get my hands on, and started a garden. Then, one evening, when I was thinking of ways to generate conversation with my partner that wasn't COVID related, I decided to take a look at his coding lessons. What started out as an act of devotion quickly became a shared obsession. From then on, our evenings were spent talking about new theories in code and sharing what we were learning with each other. I was able to focus all of my time and energy into becoming the best programmer I could be. The next thing I knew, I was enrolling in Flatiron School, building full stack web apps. And now here I am making this exciting pivot from customer service to software engineering.
All right, Brenda, what did you think about Sierra's answer as some of the comments roll in? What did she do well? What can be improved?
Let me just, Adriel, real quick. I see our next guest is waiting in the green room. Dr. Sabrina, I'm going to bring you up on screen just to make sure we can see and hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly. Can you hear me okay?
We can. And give us just a minute or two to wrap, and then we're going to bring you up next, if that's okay.
Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you. All right. So I liked the lighting. I thought was really well lit. I'm not sure what she's using, if it's a box light or a ring light, but the fact that I can't really see what's going on behind, and my energy and focus was on the person doing the interview. I like that. That's one thing I like. I see Jeff had a comment. He said, he wishes she would get to the point quicker. Another comment from Caitlin saying similar. I got a little lost. And Jihan says she loves this. I'm not sure if it's the whole concept or if it's just the combination itself of all of those items, but a couple pieces of feedback on there.
Yeah, I think those are great points, right? What I really liked is how she really brought in what brought her that passion. But I wanted to hear more of how she spent her time becoming a better engineer, because that's what's most relevant to the job. And so great feedback from everybody. Appreciate it. So just to show you what you can do, all your answers are default private on here. These folks chose to make them public. So what you can do is there you go. So you can go to riveterworks.com/Adriel, sign up for free, practice, watch how other people answer, learn about interviewing. It is free and always will be, and hopefully can be helpful to you. And yes, I know your question next, Brenda. Please connect with me. Absolutely. I hope you do.
So I'm going to pull it up on screen. I need to grab your URL from the address bar real quick here. So you're open to accepting invitations, it sounds like, from anybody who's watching here today, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I put your website on there again, riveterworks.com, and I'm going to also put your LinkedIn URL up on screen for people to connect with you. And reminder, guys, when you click on that invitation, or rather that connect button, make sure that you include a note and mention to Adriel that you watched him on the LinkedIn Live-a-thon. And if there's something particularly compelling that you enjoyed from his segment, let him know that as well. Adriel, thank you so much. It's a pleasure. We're just getting to know each other through this LinkedIn Live-a-thon process, but I hope we stay connected and definitely have the opportunity to chat with each other again in the future.
Awesome. Thanks for what you're doing, Brenda, and good luck to Dr. Sabrina coming up next.